Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new episode of the All About the Metaverse podcast. We're still here, Alexis.
Yeah,
Thanks
we
for
are.
coming
We are.
back.
Thanks for inviting me again. You know what? I'm gonna stop just saying thank you for inviting me again. You know what? Even that the metaverse is never going to go through, let's continue doing many podcasts or whatever. Maybe our best play is that we do our own metaverse. I'm seeing some platforms out there that allow you to do your own metaverse. Really.
Well,
I'm still.
we're going to end up having to do something just so that we can keep doing this show. But for now, I do think there is a lot to talk about because there is still a lot of things happening. It just seems to me that the big newspapers, the big media outlets have very much focused on the idea that, oh, no one's really talking about the metaverse. There's nobody in the metaverse. There's a lot of like bashing of the industry overall. And although we both agree that that is true to a certain extent, and we discussed this on various episodes and with Gorang as well in one of the previous episodes talking about how it needs to be more fun, I do think that there is actually a surprisingly large amount of stuff still happening in this metaverse space.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, something that we don't hear so much is the activity that's happening in the Far East in terms of metaverse. So it's quite funny. Like every time that China does something, we say like, oh, it's China doing something. It's like you have like secret services in the UK go like, yeah, okay, that's MI6. In China, like, no, the Chinese. It's like, oh, the US, oh, the NASA is doing something. No, it's the Chinese. Like, okay, well, actually, there is a company in China that started to do something as well, right? We just discussed this streaming service called BiliBili as well,
Yeah,
right? Something
BiliBili.
like
So
that.
that
Yeah,
basically is kind of China's equivalent of YouTube, right? And
yeah,
for a
something
lot of
like that. Yeah.
people, they probably don't necessarily know about this. But I think last year, the numbers that we managed to find last year on average was about 330 million monthly active users, which puts it, I think, above Twitter in terms of number of users, just to put that into some kind of context. This isn't a small platform by any means, and it's currently doing something quite interesting, right, in this space.
Yeah, they're starting to build their own infrastructure, so the whole entire blockchain infrastructure in order to move their digital assets. So I think start from that. But obviously they are eyeing on the, what they call like the $10 trillion market opportunity, which is the metaverse. Which, if you continue saying this, we might believe it that there's a $10 trillion market opportunity, which will save our podcasts. I'm just saying, right?
There
So,
was a report. There was a report today in the news. So I get a news alert every day to talk about things from the metaverse. And there was actually a report. I've just got it here in front of me. South Africa's metaverse market report. Large telecom giants are launching metaverse platforms and events to drive the popularity of the virtual world. And if you listen to them, I believe they put it at a 14 billion dollar industry by 2030. So that's 7 years to go, and I think we're currently a long way from those numbers. But it is interesting because a lot of people are still talking about this in a very positive way, aren't they?
yeah, they are, and as a matter of fact, I saw as well the future headset that Apple is going to release. Okay, I don't know exactly what's the name.
Rumored,
I
rumored.
rumored. Oh man, I saw some. I think those are leaked pictures. That thing looks good. Yeah, even for $3,000, the headset, I think it's. But besides the fact it's a beautiful looking object, it looks like they're packing quite a fair bit of technology in there, and it seems that there's a lot of AR, VR, and mixed reality sort of capabilities. So yeah, large companies are still putting some money in. We discussed as well last time that it seems that Meta is capitulating, but not really, is it?
No, I don't think they are capitulating, and I think that's again another one of we've said it right. For us, for this show, it's not about bashing. We will comment objectively on what's happening in the space and what's going on, but I think basically everyone's now said like, oh, Zuckerberg has given up on the metaverse. He's now changed his direction altogether and is now focusing on AI. And I think everyone at the moment is a little bit AI crazy, and I think it's also going to have a very big positive impact on the metaverse, on gaming in general, on the way we tell stories, on cinema. I mean, it's going to change the way we just consume content altogether in a huge way.
Yeah, content and entertainment. Yeah.
100%, it has to, right? And there's been some really interesting articles come out recently of like even big cinematographers saying, the future of cinematography and Hollywood isn't I'm going to go and see the latest film in a cinema. It's going to be you sit at home and you say, I want my character, me, to be in a romantic comedy with Marilyn Monroe. Go, tell me a story. And it can produce this kind of
Sign me
content.
up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you mentioned in one of the last episodes, I think for adult entertainment industry, it could be very
Yeah.
different. But so I think one of the big things is obviously now we saw the story, and I'll link it down below if anyone else wants to read this. One of the Wall Street firms has basically said, "Is Meta going to change their name now to Met AI, Meta AI?" And I think that's kind of an interesting one, right? They're buying up loads of chips from Nvidia to basically make sure that they can be competitive when it comes to AI. And I think that's a huge step. I don't think they're actually binning the metaverse thing. I just think this is a huge step as to how do you create a metaverse that people actually care about. I think AI plays a huge part in this. And Gorang, I think, said it on the last week's episode. You know, these idea of these agents that you can interact with in the metaverse is going to play a huge part in that, right?
Well, there are a couple of things that I find that the metaverse will be the most relevant. Definitely would be education. You know, there's something that puzzles me so much when you look at the evolution of, let's say transportation. I mean, before you had like literally you transport yourself on a carriage, okay, and then we moved on like a sort of a automobile, and then a car, and now electric car, and then in the future, God knows where we're going. I'm like a hoverboard or whatnot, okay, and many things like that have evolved throughout humanity, okay. But going to class is exactly the same way as it's been done, you know, like since the antiquity, right? I mean, it's not like you're going in Star Wars and you're going, you know, like to this event class training helmet that the younglings they have, and then you know stuff's happening. I mean, shouldn't we using the metaverse on for that for that purpose, because the metaverse needs to be, again, it needs to have purpose other than just entertainment, right? The capabilities are great, but let's make it like education is one.
I think that's a really big one, actually. And funny enough, so Meta, although they're getting a lot of stick in the big press and by the Wall Street company saying they don't care about the metaverse, etc., I think it was only 2 weeks ago they released an article saying how the metaverse can transform education. And it is completely sensible. It makes complete sense that you could suddenly give people access to potentially some of the best education in the world, right? What's stopping you from listening to a lecturer in Harvard talking about a particular subject other than the fact that you're not physically able to be there? And the world has changed a lot, right? Because of COVID, because of what happened in 2020. Everyone had to find ways to be on Zoom calls and attend school remotely. It didn't work. But imagine a way to actually engage people, to bring them into the same space and to give them access to being able to actually meet people, to have other students within that area, to be able to actually connect with people, whether it's to listen to the content, to start doing a project, to work together and collaborate on a project, or even to do the research, to do the learning around it, to just socialize around with those people that should be in your class. I think that's got huge potential. I think Meta are probably actually playing this. They're drip feeding a little bit of information. I think this could be huge as well. And again, I'm not saying Meta will get it right. I'm just saying that Meta is so well funded that there is a strong possibility that they can actually get something to the end, as opposed to maybe some of our crypto Web3 counterparts and companies that we've seen that we like the sound of and who don't ever quite get to that point. Because again, we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. We're talking about billions of
Millions of
dollars. And
dollars,
even
yes, of
with
course.
billions of dollars and some really intelligent people, they haven't cracked the code. And that's a big thing, right?
Well, there's always this low-hanging fruit, right, that people should go after. And as much as it seems that, like government agencies and collectivities and whatnot, they seem that, I mean, at least in the Western world, it seems that education has decreased in terms of quality, whilst, with the technology that we're having today, of course, the internet, but now, the metaverse, I mean, as you said, we could be tomorrow be sitting on an awesome lecture at Harvard and soaking it all in, right? And not even doing it, like in the traditional way, but even having, like maybe in a different environment, we could be floating in space or stuff like that. So it's all a matter of going after the low hanging fruit. And if education is being so low, that's definitely a low fruit to pick up, right? Because everybody needs education. Even myself at 40 plus years old, I mean, I need to pick up my skills and like, okay, let's take a course. But again, it would be much more fun if I could be there, like a nice relaxing lounging chair, putting my goggles on, and then okay, let's go. Let's learn something and having fun.
I guess as well, like you said, for 50, 60, 70 years, education really hasn't changed a huge amount. Yeah, fine, they've got tablets now in classes and things like that rather than books and pens and paper. But outside of that, we haven't really changed the fact that you have to sit there, 30 children sitting, looking at a screen or a board, and you wait for whoever's at the front of it to tell you how it works. But imagine learning things like, so I didn't particularly like history because when I was when I was younger, it basically just felt like I had to learn on this day, this happened, on that day, that happened, on this day, that happened. And I never really found it that engaging. As an older, sort of as an adult, I've read tons from the World War II all the way back to sort of history of religions and how things started. I've got an interest in it. But back then, I was bored. And I think, imagine being able to experience
And
history
reenact
as you
the
learn
history,
it.
right? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
How would you like to learn about Henry VIII and the Tudors, for example, other than walking around in that time and seeing what was happening? Could you imagine, like, as a kid, you'd spend 30 minutes, you'd learn the information, but in the same way as they can tell you what every character from the MCU and the Marvel universe is
That's
like,
right.
what their backstory is, where they came from, what they do, what their powers are. Well, imagine that if you had the same sort of engaging content, the kids would be able to tell you everything about what Henry VIII
100%.
was doing, what the Six Wives were called, what was going on at the time, all of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's see who's gonna have the balls to step into that arena and go like, hey, okay, we're building the metaverse, to have the capabilities of teaching, history and other subjects in the most realistic manner to our students. I mean that would be really groundbreaking, I think. And okay, sorry, don't quote me, but last time I said that porn will be maybe the groundbreaking element. Okay, wait.
We've definitely moved on from that.
We moved on, right? We moved on from that, and then we've gone through education. Okay, well, okay, very well.
Two very different spectrums, like the different edges of the spectrum, like different angles. But it's definitely one of those things that what we talked about more than anything else on this show is the purpose, right? It's the why are you jumping into it? And if it isn't fun, if it's not interesting, if it's not engaging, are you going to jump into this? Is anybody going to jump into this? And I think this is still the biggest challenge for the metaverse, right? It's finding a way to get people to actually care about what's happening.
Something I find that maybe the metaverse got wrong, or at least from the Web3 blockchain and token perspective, is that they try to model a model that they know, which is land sale, and they all got into like, okay, land sale. And then on your land, and of course, then on your land, you're free to do whatever you want. But it was all about that pecuniary, idea of, okay, I'm going to make money out of versus, okay, no, I'm just going to have like a great experience, right? And of course, you had to fund the means, right, to have such operations. But everybody went into like, okay, let's do a land sale, and it was successful until it was not anymore, right? So, what if tomorrow there would be like a metaverse platform that go like, hey, listen, we are just selling content, okay? We are selling history books. We are creating, the reenactment of that battle, that situation. And all of a sudden you wire yourself in, and there, boom, you learn.
There's definitely a case for the actual content is going to play a huge part in this. And I think, again, I hate to say this, AI is going to drive that massively, because all of a sudden you could create, with the use of AI, the fundamental law that runs your universe, your metaverse, your story. And then basically anybody could come in and out of it and be subjected to that world. And AI would take care of everything else in between. So AI can take the story of the NPC characters to a whole new level. They could interact with you, and then one day I could meet them 6 years later and they would say, oh, actually, I think I met your friend Alexis years ago, just because of the fact that we were linked as friends on that platform. So you could have these stories that would be super engaging. But it was one of the universes that I've been looking at the moment, metaverse project, sorry, that I've been looking at, which is Mandala. So again, and this, by the way, is not sponsored in any way, shape or form, and this is just preliminary me looking at this and thinking this sounds interesting. They've gone cross-chain. They want to do this so that it's open for lots of people in different ways. They're also trying to figure it out, but really what they're trying to do is make a system of content that goes across multiple different platforms. So there will be a comic book, graphic novel kind of style element. There will be video elements where the story is being told, and there will be a metaverse element where you get to play a part in that kind of story. Now, if you imagine playing this out on a bigger scale and taking it to the nth degree 20 years from now, imagine the fact that actually instead of one person writing the story of The Lord of the Rings, imagine if we all took part in writing the story that then can be finished and finalized in 20 years time, or maybe that never gets finalized, right? It's just a continuing evolution that's happening. And the only thing I can think of that's ever even come close to this is that years ago on, I think, PlayStation 2, a Matrix game came out, that followed in between the second and the third films. And it literally had characters from the films that were doing stuff in the same universe, and it was kind of playing alongside, but it wasn't you replayed the film in the game. It was literally just complementary. And that kind of stuff, I think, is where you could really win. Like MCU, right, has proved it. Marvel, that belongs to Disney now, they have created, I can't remember, 40 odd films that are all connected. This is the biggest single universe that's ever been made, I think, other than Star Wars, by the way, also owned by Disney. But they're huge, right? Like, it's this, people want to be consumed by these universes.
Yeah, of course. Well, let's see what's going to be in store as well with the some creator themselves, because I mean, we're talking about like large studios, of course, Disney and Pixar, and I mean, those are the large companies. But I do believe that AI is going to come here just to help in terms of design, but will never be as creative as the human mind. I mean, we are damn creative, right? So I do believe that there's going to be some people that they will have the capabilities or the enhanced capabilities thanks to the technology to do just that, right? To be able to create unbelievable stories and unbelievable intricate universe that they will be taking place on the metaverse. So I really can't wait for this to happen, really. I mean, you following people on Instagram or YouTube and whatnot, that is just the very start of those content creators' universes, right? I mean, if you, again, leave it to me to create my own metaverse, and it would be so psychedelically funky, right? And with so many intertwined story and little, I mean, this is going to happen. It is going to happen, and I'm sure this is going to be, the advent of new content consumption, creation, and the metaverse and AI will decouple the capabilities of people for doing just that. So yes, kudos for mantra. Was it
Mandala?
Mandala, yeah, Mandala.
I think what's really important, though, what you said there is you're right. Humans will always have that next step of creativity. I think where it becomes interesting is instead of 1 or 5 people coming up with the entirety of a story, or one person writing the next big franchise like the Harry Potter books or whatever it might be, we have the ability to actually create stories that could involve thousands of people. And each individual character could be represented by real human beings that actually, as they interact with these worlds, the story is being written, and that story can then be played out and can be created into films, into books, into whatever it is. But all of these things are literally capable now. And again, I don't think they really were in the same way before, but I think it's given us a real opportunity to look at this and say, the way we consume content is going to become more interactive. And I think there's been a couple of Netflix shows where they've tried to give people options and you could choose left or right or whatever might happen next. Yeah. I think this is like the next level of that. But not only that, but actually the way all of us do. Yeah, we tried a couple of them. And then also I think most recently we watched Kaleidoscope as well. I don't know if you've seen that one. So it's another show where there's 8 episodes, I think, but everyone watches them in a different order.
Okay.
So you get the whole story from start to finish, but you get it in a different time frame or a different timeline. So you see a bit before, a bit after. So again, it's a really clever way of getting people to consume content in different ways. But again, all of this is just possible now, that you could create the next Harry Potter world, the next whatever, MCU, but it could be belonging to thousands of us, tens of thousands of us, hundreds of thousands of us, and we could all be helping to write that story.
Agreed. Well, again, maybe we're gonna come up with sufficient viewers that will be paying for our contents, and then we'll be able to build our own metaverse. And okay, guys, watch this space. We are coming up with our own metaverse ideas.
We're going to replace ourselves with AI.
Might as well. Might as well. I can't wait. Hey, something that I'm wondering, and as we were discussing about, like the low hanging fruit of the metaverse, and like information is one, education is another, and something I'm always wonder, like, how come Wikipedia, which I know is a foundation and I know it's like a supposedly not a profit, but imagine if tomorrow, Wikipedia were to, power up their library to the metaverse, right, and create a Wikipedia metaverse right there.
So I think the key challenge is, and this is where, again, like, I hate to say this is where AI can change things, right? Because all of everything in Wikipedia is currently text, right? It's text, links, and images. Let's give it that. So if you could get AI to create the virtual environment where you could experience a Wikipedia page, but in an interactive way, that changes everything. If you had to program that every page yourself, I mean, it's game over. Like, this would take hundreds of thousands of hours of programming, of visual coding, of like drawing, of graphics, of illustration, modeling. So it doesn't work necessarily. But I think that's where it becomes really interesting. It becomes even more interesting, I think, is if you think to all the content we've made as a race, right, as a human beings for the last 70, 80 years, maybe even longer, if you can take all of that and feed it in, it means that we could bring people back to life. Like, you could go onto the Wikipedia page of Ronald Reagan as ex-president of the United States.
Can we just not include wokeism into that, please? All right, that part we leave it out. Okay, that one we don't need. That was a skip. We skip that bit.
But imagine being able to go onto a virtual Wikipedia page for Marilyn Monroe, right? We mentioned her earlier because she was mentioned in one of the articles, and you could have an interview. You could interview Marilyn Monroe. Tell me what your favorite film was. And again, it would pick up based on other interviews that have been made where she had been quoted, what she'd done. And you could get that real information. Now, of course, obviously, it's not going to be able to fill in all the gaps. But if you wanted to keep it completely real and based on what was there, all of that is possible now because of AI. And if you play this out long enough, it's mind-boggling what we could do.
Well, it's coming. It's definitely coming. We're living really like I mean, the times that we're living are incredible. I mean, we're sending, we're reaching for the stars and new planets, and we want to become like interstellar species. We're having the awakening of AI. We're building metaverses. I mean, the whole entire thing is really happening. We're really living such incredible times. I mean, this is unprecedented.
I couldn't agree with you more. This is like the next big, there's another big shift for technology that's just about to happen. Well, listen, Alexis, I think this has been awesome. As always, there's plenty to talk about around the metaverse, but we'll be back again next week. Thank you for listening, everybody. If you haven't already, please do hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate it. You can find us on LinkedIn, and you'll find us on Twitter, Facebook, as well as on YouTube, where you can see us in our black t-shirts talking about this content as well.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, invite me again next week. We'll have plenty to talk about. Yeah?
I've got to stop. We've got to stop saying invite. You're here every week. So
okay,
it's okay.
I come every week. Done. Okay, done. Then see you guys next week.
Done.
Thank you for listening. Bye. See you, Chris.
Take care.
Bye-bye.